Good day to you, my scholar followers, and I hope you are doing well today. I am here to talk about my adventure I had going up to the Richmond, Virginia area a couple weekends ago to participate in their summer skirmish tournament. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about what I brought, which I already did a video on, hint, hint. Go check that out. And how the event ran, and who I played, and what I played against, and Uh, I would say that I'd love to say I did good, but I didn't do all that great. Um, Mostly because I was not playing to win. I was more trying out an army with some profiles I've never used before. So let's go ahead and start with the event itself. It was a 650 point event, 3 rounds, 2 hour rounds. It was in a great place at a game store called Battlegrounds. First time I've ever been there. I've had the ability to learn about it from Richie and Josh and Ashley, who are from that group and live in the Fredericksburg area. And they have told me that it's a great store, but it's the first time I've ever been there myself. And I will say that it was really cool. Very nice layout, very open, not like some of the stores where they're really close and cluttered. Lots of gaming space, lots of gaming platforms there. They had a great variety. Basically, the store was like a giant rectangle, and there were tables and stuff all over the place, gaming tables, regular just collapsible tables for card games, and all of the products were up against the walls. So I really liked how that was done, because you could peruse around the store looking at stuff without actually having to like walk in between tables and get in people's way. I actually did that several times myself as I was looking at different things. So, I mean, you still have to be careful not to step on someone's bag or bump shoulders, but it's not like a store that you might go to where they have aisles or rows and the tables might be at the end and you kind of have to maneuver around the tables. It was a really good layout. So, not really what you guys care about, but if you're in that area of Richmond, Fredericksburg, whatever, go check out Battlegrounds. Really good store. I look forward to going back there. So back to the event itself. As I said, it was a 650 point event, 3 rounds. The pools were completely randomly rolled for. I actually like the way that it was done. Chris Young was our TO, and he had different players roll for the pool. So I actually got the roll for the was it scenario 2 pool, which was cool. Nice little shout out there to Chris for giving me the chance to pick my own scenario to lose at. Scenario pool, anyway. So it was veto style. So I'll go ahead and talk about my army I played real quick. So I did play the Radagast Alliance list, and I played it with all the characters from Radagast Alliance. So if you haven't checked out my video on Radagast Alliance and Misty Mountains, go check it out. It's a little bit longer than I expected for only 4 profiles, but I really enjoyed playing that list, so I took some time really deep diving into it. And I think if you're looking at playing any of those profiles, you'll find some good nuggets there. Hopefully you'll find some good nuggets here as well as I go through it. That's the great thing about doing these event reviews, is that you really get the ability to kind of talk about some of the stuff that you see as strengths or weaknesses in your armies. So I played Radagast on the sleigh with Sebastian, Beorn, Guahir, and a Great Eagle. It is exactly 650 points, which was perfect. It's the first time I've ever played a super technical army like this. So one where it's some big monsters and stuff, but you really got to get things to all go your way. And you really kind of have to have everything going your way throughout the day. If you have a couple really bad turns, it could really hurt you. So I'll go ahead and jump into it. And round 1 ended up being new maneuvering scenarios, which is storm the camp, reconnoiter, and divide and conquer. So with it being veto, I ended up playing against Connor, who was playing a Last Alliance army, which was really cool. He had Elendil on horse. He had a Captain Numenor mounted and kitted out. And he also had, what's his name? Aristor. He might have had the captain kitted or mounted. I can't remember for sure. I know for fact that Elendil was mounted. And Elendil might have been the only mounted one. But anyway, it was a typical mix of what you would expect with Defense 6 elves and being supported by Strength 4 spear-wielding Numenorians. I think he had one Rivendell knight, and then a fair amount of bowmen as well. So he had a pretty good sized army, especially compared to me. It was 35 or 36 models, something in that range, 34 to 36. I can't remember exactly. Either way, he had well more than I did, obviously, with my paltry 4. So he rolled, and he was the one to veto first, and he vetoed Reconnoiter, which I don't blame him. I wouldn't have really enjoyed playing that anyway, especially with a force like his that really doesn't like marching across the board. So I can't blame him for getting rid of that. In hindsight, maybe he should have played it just because of the fact that the other two scenarios, Divide and Conquer and Storm the Camp, coming from the corners can potentially make you have to work harder. I know Divide and Conquer, you're just going to the middle of the board. But I guess maybe his thought process was get rid of Reconnoiter, which is the one where I could, tie him, fly across the board real quick with my Eagles and, Radagast on his sleigh at 10 inches and just tie his whole army up. And then last turn, slip a single model off and go ahead and get like a 7-0 victory for having, 3 times the amount, even though it's one model. But he did get rid of that, and I'm actually glad because I really didn't want to play that scenario myself. And that left me with Divide and Conquer and Storm the Camp to pick from. And knowing from my one practice game I had that objective scenarios do not go well for a 4-model army, I went ahead and got rid of Divide and Conquer. So we deployed. I dropped my 4 models on the board, and I was like, all right, that's it. That's everything. Your turn. And he's like, oh, okay, well. So he went ahead and deployed his army. Nothing really crazy happened. I'm not going to go super in depth. I'll try and hit the highlights of these. I don't want this turning into like a crazy 30-minute video. And I don't have a lot of pictures. I had already said it in the video, but I'm sorry. I don't have a lot of photos. So a lot of this is just going to be reused photos from the army review. So the big highlights, I guess, for the first few turns was turn 1, I went ahead and turned into bear form, which was great because in my practice game it never happened. And I got Terrifying Aura up with Radagast's free point of will, which is also great. So my whole army caused terror, and everybody moved 8 to 12 inches. Also good because I could push the middle of the board, get up there quickly. No shooting first turn. I think maybe second or third turn we had shooting. I can't remember exactly which turn it was, but it ended up being really devastating for me because he shot with his bows, and he went after Radagast, which I have to, tip my hat. That was a smart play by Connor. Go for the leader, go for the weak guy, because the Eagles are defense 8, Beorn's defense 8, Radagast is the leader, and he's defense 5. So he had strength 2 and strength 3 bows, so he went and shot at Radagast. Unluckily for me, so it was a bit of luck and unluckiness. He had a fair amount. I think he had almost a full third of bow count, so at least 10. He missed with a heavy number of them. Unfortunately for me, the ones that all hit Radagast and ended up causing 3 wounds, which I promptly had to fate completely out of. So, that's not really where you want to be. Well, not 3 wounds. I'm sorry. Maybe it was 2 wounds. Whatever it was enough that it burnt all my fate. Not something you really want to be doing before you even get into combat, to have your leader taking wounds from archery like that and then burning all your fate. Because I have Elendil, a Numenorian captain, and Aristor to deal with. But smart play, super smart play from him, knowing your targets of opportunity and going for them. Because even if he hadn't hit Radagast, hitting the sleigh means he's wounding it on 4s or 5s with those strength 2 and strength 3 bows. So we do get into combat, and honestly, I throw a few spells around. My big thing was trying to pop Nature's Wrath with Radagast. Not looking to channel it because strength 2, hits with the channeled isn't going to really damage defense 5 or defense 6 men and elves. So didn't really see a point in doing that. My whole thought process was more, let me just knock down as many guys as I can. That way I can charge into them and be fighting some guys that are prone. Because I already knew I was going to be getting surrounded pretty frequently, and I was just going to have to try and use base sizes, particularly Radagast's and Beorn's, to try and dictate how his models got around me. I can't remember what turn of combat it was, but I know that the big thing that happened early game was he did a strike with Elendil. And no, he didn't do a strike with Elendil. I'm sorry. Elendil, I don't remember what Elendil did, but he ended up, maybe he marched. No, that was the he did march, but that was with the captain. I don't remember. I think he might have done a movement. But Elendil got into combat against that, I think that was what it is. Yeah. No, it wasn't. Never mind. Elendil got into combat with Radagast. All right, so I got this. Here we go. Elendil got into combat with Radagast. Elendil rolled a 4 high. Radagast, I rolled, a 6 high. Well, he went ahead and opted to burn 2 points of might to win the fight, which I can respect. And with his, he was going two-handed every turn, every time, unless he said otherwise. So with the strength 5, two-handed, burly, all that, he's wounding on like 3s, I think, for Radagast. Not a pretty sight. He got 2 wounds, which put Radagast at 1, and he rolled a 1 on his third roll. And he's like, if I had rolled a 2, I would have spent my 3rd point of might right there. And so, kind of brutal to have Radagast down to 1 that early on in the game. One wound. So it's like, I got to change and rethink about everything I do from here on out. I don't remember how everything turned out. Long story short, he ended up burning through his might very quickly. I won several key roll-offs, which was really good for me because it gave me the ability to get my Eagles up to 3 attacks, and it gave Radagast the ability to cast, which is what you really need. Yeah, he's my best combat hero with 6 dice when he charges, but he's there for casting. The big thing was that I was able to... We did a movement at one point, and Radagast was able to transfix the guy that was calling... that he had used to call his movement, so I completely canceled it. Because I think at that point, Bayon doesn't benefit from Radagast's calls, and the Eagles were out of range. Because I actually kind of spread out a little bit, and I was kind of trying to do this like hurling thing, where I was hurling his guys around into each other from different alleyways with my monsters, and it was working because I got like 3 or 4 kills that way. Plus, it knocked guys prone and moved them out of position. But unfortunately, I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd turn, I needed to go and do a movement because I lost priority. Won the roll-off, and then transfixed his guy, so I completely canceled his heroic. He must have called. Actually, that's it. He called it, and I countered, and I won the roll-off and was able. Anyway, it gave me the ability to keep going with the charges, and that was really key. It's like it was a tough fight because Elendil is not an easy nut to crack. The Numenorean captain and Aristor were not easy nuts to crack, but I was able to do it, and it took pretty much the entirety of the game. That being said, he was very smart in his play, and he had 6 or 7 guys coming down on the 2 flanks well outside of range. We're talking like 20 inches away from my guys, at least, for most of the time, until the very end where they had to kind of get close. He was using the outskirts of the board and just getting up there and getting towards my camp. Because storm the camp, that's the objective. So I was able to break him, and I killed his leader, and that was really good for me because at that point I was not going to be able to get to his camp, so I was going to have to achieve the secondaries while still somehow keeping him out of my camp. That last part, though, keeping him out of my camp, was almost all but impossible. I really had to focus on getting Elendil, and I probably maybe overcommitted my forces to make sure I killed Elendil. I probably needed to pull guys sooner. Unfortunately, what ended up happening was he got into my base, broke, and then like the 6 guys that were going for it, 3 of them were in the camp at that point, and 2 of the 3 fled. I was able to send Gwahir down and pick off the other 2 that were trying to come from the opposite corner, or the opposite side, because you got to think about it. If you hold your hand up in an L, your camp is down there in the corner. So he had 1 coming down from like the long side of the L, or 3 coming down from the long side of the L, and 3 coming down from the short side of the L, at least. And I got rid of the ones coming from the short side, but the ones from the long side all got into the camp. well, 2 of the 3 fled from courage checks. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, that's great. That's exactly what I need to see. Unfortunately, that's also what lost me the game, is so many of his guys, even with courage 4 and courage 5, elves and men, fled. And he ended up quartering. So the first turn that he broke, enough guys left where I was like, yeah, I can go in there and get I can go get the base now. And then the second turn, it was just guy after guy after guy after guy after guy were failing courage checks to the point where he 25'd on courage checks. And I was like, well, this is the last turn, and there's literally nothing to do. I had one play to maybe attempt a win, and that was Gwahir flew into one of the guys, like I said, that was going for the base. I had killed one and was on the short side of the L, and I was going to barge off of him and pray I rolled a 6. I needed a 4 through a 6 on a successful barge in order to get into my camp, which would have negated the one guy of his that was in my camp, which at that point would mean that he would not score any victory points for it, because he would have his camp, but so would I, because you need to have more models than the enemy. So it would have been a 1-1, one of his guys, one of my guys, and that would have ended the game with me winning 5-0. Sorry, 6-0. As it was, I did not get in. So at first we thought it was a 6-6 draw because I killed his leader, which gives me 3, and I broke him. It was unbroken, which is also 3. He had my camp, and his was full. He did have a couple guys in his camp, which gave him the ability to have my camp and also control his own, which gave him 6. But then we remembered Radagast was down to one wound, and that means he got 1 point for wounding the enemy leader. So it was a 7-6 minor loss for me. Really good game. I really have to hand it to Connor. That is one of those kind of games where you don't like playing it as from his perspective, because most of the time all he was doing was picking models up off the board. He played extremely smart. He was getting a little flustered, I could tell, but he was not getting flustered to the point that he made a critical error, which was to divert his guys going from my base into combats to give me more guys to tie me up. He continued and kept his eye on the prize, which was to go get my camp. And I have to say, kudos. That is one of the biggest things I try to tell new players is like, focus on the objective. A lot of times you can lose, you can get broken. You can lose a lot of models. Your enemy leader can get killed. But if you go and achieve the objective of the game, you can win the game. Not every scenario is about killing. There's a lot of scenarios out there, case in point this one, where if you focus on the objective of the game, you will win the game. And that's exactly what happened. He won a 7-6 minor victory, which was great. So moving on from there, we go into round 2, and I am the highest ranked losing player from round 1. So I'm actually up there at one of the higher tables because I had a minor loss with a lot of VPs. As it was, I ended up playing a guy who had he had won his first game, but I think it was like a minor win. I can't remember. So he won his first game, but he was the lowest ranking of the winners. He played the highest ranking of the losers, which was me. Thought that was pretty interesting. I ended up. This was the round that I got to roll for the scenario pool, and I ended up rolling for kill the enemy scenarios, which is to the death, Lords of Battle, and Contest of Champions. So obviously, we can go ahead and say this right now. Wasn't expecting to play Lords of Battle. And his army was the host of the Dragon Emperor. So he was playing the new Easterling Dragon Emperor with the new Easterling heroes, Rutabi and whatever the other guy's name is, the caster. So he instantly goes ahead and we roll. He eliminates first and he eliminates Lords of Battle. Surprise, surprise. So that leaves me with the choice of To the Death or Contest of Champions. And I hemmed and I hawed about it because at that point, with a minor loss with high VPs, maybe if I can get 2 major victories in rounds 2 and 3, I can potentially pull off a podium. But I was like, I'm hemming and I'm hawing. I'm thinking about the scenarios. I know going into To the Death, I wasn't even really worried about that scenario when it comes to the fact that I had no archery because he had 3 bowmen in his army. So I'm not really worried about 3 strength 2 bows. blowing me away. Maybe a couple cheeky lucky shots on Radagast, but if I'm moving across the board, I can screen him with my defense 8 Eagles and defense 8 Baylord. Not a big deal there. Because the strength 2 on defense 8, you need 6s by 5s. Good luck with that. Whatever. But I knew I'd also be 2 victory points down just to start the game because of the fact that the Dragon Emperor on his Panikin, or whatever the heck you want to call it, is a banner. And I have no banner in my list, which really meant that I would be fighting an uphill battle the entire time. Didn't think I would have much of a chance of killing the Dragon Emperor just because he had a very large army. I really like that new army. It is a little bit overpowered potentially in my opinion because of the fact that you can get so many free points with free Black Dragon upgrades. Maybe it needs an FAQ already that the only one who can give that is the Emperor himself and not like the Black Dragon Knights, which can also do it. That being said, at 650, you're not seeing a Dragon Knight. Moving along, because I said I didn't want to get this to 30 minutes, and I'm sitting here at 21. Yeah, bad, Jason, bad. I ended up going ahead and getting rid of To the Death. Because I realized that, we were talking about how our games went, and I was like, it was like, oh, so you won round 1. He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to be that guy who's like, yeah, I got a minor loss with a lot of VPs. I can still podium. I was like, the hell with it. Let's just play and have some fun. Let's see what these profiles that I've only played in 2 games now, and let's see how they can do against the Dragon Emperor. So I got rid of To the Death, and we played Constance of Champions. Talk about a game that could probably go as terrible as it could go for you when it comes to rolls. It was that game for me. I lost every priority, and I lost every roll-off. I won't say every. I think I won 2 priorities, but it felt like I lost every single one of them because I literally did lose like every roll-off. There was not a single roll-off in that game that I won, which really sucked because that meant that turn 1, when the Dragon Emperor is sitting there 4 inches away from Radagast, and I want to try and potentially pop a spell, I lost a roll-off, and he charged Radagast. So I never got to cast a spell with Radagast in that game, and I'm pretty sure if it wasn't... I want to say it was like by turn 3, he was already dead. So, yeah, that sucks. That being said, it was one of those ones where, okay, Radagast is dead. The Dragon Emperor killed him. That gets him his 1 kill. It's going to be impossible for me to get any kills with my leader at this point, so he's already got a 7-0 victory. Let's just see what can happen. So we just kept playing, It ended up, the game ends at, I think, a quarter as well. Yeah, it ends at a quarter. So, long story short, I ended up getting quartered. He killed killed Radagast, he killed Gwahir, and he killed Baylor. The only guy that I had left, funny as it is the Giant Eagle, which you don't really want, the Giant Eagle to be alive because, the Giant Eagle or the Great Eagle, whatever, is the key weakness of that army, due to the fact that he has to get the charge off to get to 3 attacks and strength 7, and to get knockdown ability. So if he's not getting the charge off, he's only at 2 dice, and most of the game I was 2 dicing with him and Gwahir, which is what really didn't help. So it ended up being a pure 12-0 major loss for me. There was nothing I could do. Like I said, by turn 3, and it might have been turn 2, Radagast is dead. The Dragon Emperor's got his 1 kill he needs to get 7 VPs just for having more kills than the enemy leader. And then he went on to break me and kill the enemy leader. Which is a really weird one for me. I like the idea of Contest of Champions. I just don't think it should be a 3-inch front and center deployment, because the secondary objective that gets you the most points is kill the enemy leader. If you're going to have a Lords of Battle style scoring system of 3, 5, 7, then your second largest one should not be kill the enemy leader and then make the enemy leaders fight each other right there front and center. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because all it takes is one enemy leader being drastically better than the other one, and the other player can score a 10-0 victory without even trying and just do nothing from there around the rest of the game and eat out the clock. And Yeah, it's not my favorite scenario when it comes to scoring. I really think G-Dub absolutely botched the ever living hell out of that scenario when it comes to scoring. I think it should be either a standard 24-inch deployment with variation, because this is also one has the also has like the capture and control deployment where it's 24, but you roll for each warband, and 1 through 3 is front 12, and 4 through 6 is anywhere on your board edge or board half. That's how it should be, in my opinion. Maybe in the future, if I play Constance of Champions, I'll errata it. Do a house rule. That would make it more realistic in my mind, or not more realistic, but it would give a better fighting chance. It's one thing if you got two smash ass heroes against each other. It's another thing if like I took Radagast and he was just on a horse. Well, then he's got absolutely no chance going and fighting against the Dragon Emperor. But nothing against John, who is my opponent. I don't know if I said that. So, John, great game. It is what it is. I chose this scenario. I'm okay with that because at the end of the day, I was like, I'm not gonna podium. Let's try and see if we can't help this guy out. I was hoping for it to be maybe a little bit more even when it comes to roll-offs, but I still did a good job. My army did a really good job, even with Radagast completely going bottoms up quickly. Beorn and Gwahir and the Great Eagle, they did a good job. I think he had close to 40 models, and I'm pretty sure I killed at least a dozen and a half. And I know it was at least a dozen, and I think it was closer to a dozen and a half because I killed all 3 bowmen that he had. I killed all of his mounted guys, which was like 3, and I do remember picking off a number of guys. It came to the point where like I tried a couple hurls, but it's like you're hurling defense 6 guys through each other. You need 6s to wound with the impacts, and then like you need a 5 to wound with the initial blow or whatever. It's like let's just go. He's throwing bodies at me. Let's just kill guys, and that's basically what I did, was just go for killing guys. Now, one thing I think that may have made the game a little bit better, and I don't know if it would have really meant much, but if I could have at least gotten Terrifying Aura off turn 1 with Radagast, it might have made somewhat of a difference, because there were a lot of failed courage checks by Easterlings, especially and that includes the courage for Black Dragons, where they were trying to charge my monsters. And I think that's honestly, the game took, we were done in an hour. I think it was an hour, but we took that full hour because of the fact that there were a lot of guys failing courage checks to charge my monsters. And that is definitely one of the great things about this list and, Misty Mountains in general. Radagast Alliance, Misty Mountains, you can play them all as one like I did, or play them as 2 separate armies. They all have terror, especially if you can get terror up on Radagast, it's even better. Now, Beorn man form doesn't have terror, but Beorn bear form does. And again, I was able to get Beorn into bear mode first turn, which was a plus from me. I did deploy him back so that even though I knew if I lost the initial roll off for movement, because I knew it was going to come to a heroic movement instantly, Beorn in man form can partake in heroics, and I could go ahead and potentially pop him to bear form after that. Anyway, back on topic. Terror was huge. Instead of getting like 8 or 9 guys on each of my guys, he was getting more like 5 or 6, and I'm talking that includes with supports. I did make it my priority to try and pick off pikes as much as I could, and that was really key. He did do some smart stuff where he had paid for some weapon swaps and given axes to several of his front guys, which became targets as soon as I started picking off pikes, because then he was doing piercing striking with them. Yeah, like I said, 12-0 loss, major loss for me. Whatever. I'm not really upset about it. It's a game. If you get upset about winning or losing, then there's something wrong with you. It's just a damn game with dice and little plastic and metal figures. Life is a hell of a lot more than that. It's just fun to play. And if you can't have fun, then you need to find a better hobby. Anyway, it was good because I was able to kind of slingshot him up towards the top tables, and he ended up winning his last game. and he came in second place. So I was like, yeah, I helped that guy win. So I'm taking a little bit of that glory there, John. I helped you win by picking a scenario where we wouldn't just be sitting there all game maneuvering. And that was another reason I didn't want to play to the death. I didn't want to spend 20 minutes maneuvering. I just got done doing that against Connor in round 1, and I was like, I really don't want to do that to another opponent. That's not fun. So here we go, 30 minutes in. No surprise, of course, because I over-talk and over-explain things. But let's talk about round 3. Maybe we can get this under 40 minutes. So round 3 I ended up playing against Tim on the second to bottom table. And the scenario pool that was rolled for was object scenario. So the seize the prize, destroy the supplies, and retrieval. So I was playing against Tim. Tim was playing a Army of the Dead list. And he was playing like old school Army of the Dead. We're talking the King, and that's it. No Heralds, no Aragorn for, the Return of the King LL. Just straight up the King of the Dead and a buttload of dead boys around him. So that being said, even though they're very expensive models, he had a very large, expensive profiles, models, whatever. Both. He had a pretty significant numbers count. It was in the mid-30s. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he, when you're not paying for a bunch of heroes, whatever. I think the army, the King of the Dead, makes up like less than a sixth of your army in points, so you can just spam as many as you can from there, which is a fair number. So I went into that round and I was like, you know what? I lost round 1. I've lost round 2. I'm on the second to bottom table. Let's just go for wooden spoon. Let's see if I can do that. Never gotten a wooden spoon before. Why not? So he gets rid of destroy the supplies, which I'm kind of happy for because of the fact that I had just played that a few days earlier, and I really don't want to play it again. So we're left with retrieval and crap, I just drew a blank. Seize the prize. And I don't know how I drew a blank. It's one of my favorite scenarios. Seize the prize is one of my favorite scenarios. So I got rid of, at least I'm pretty sure he got rid of destroy supplies. If he didn't, he got rid of retrieval, and I got rid of the other one. I ended up choosing to go ahead and let's play Seize the Prize. Seize the Prize is one of my favorite scenarios. I don't know why it is. I just really like that scenario. I've had a lot of fun with that scenario. Even when I've lost it, like the games have just been fun. There's something about guys running up to the middle of the board, trying to dig up something, passing it around, and trying to get up. It's football, or it's really what it is. Football or dodgeball combined. It's like we'll call it foot dodge. How about that? Or dodge foot. Pick whatever name you want, because you got to rush to the center, which is like dodgeball, but then you got to get the objective and get it off the other player's board edge, which is like scoring a touchdown in football. So one of my favorite scenarios, and it always leads to a good time. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to try and win this scenario. I'm just going to go and kill guys and see what I can do. So I transformed Beorn into man mode or bear mode, and I went ahead and popped Terrifying Ore. I know it's so necessary against, defense 7 or whatever they are. Guys, there might be, whatever they are, defense 6, defense 7. Ridiculous. How about that? Courage 6. I just looked it up. They're Courage 6 guys. Anyway, they're high defense 2, He had given them all shields, so you're talking about defense 8. So I'm going to have a hard time killing these guys, even with, Beorn, who's strength 8 in bear form. He's only winning on 4s, which for most part of the game, when I've been trying to wound something with him, it was 3s. I know that's not a huge difference, but it actually did affect me in several times when I was in combat where Beorn's up against like 3 guys and I have a chance to kill 3 guys, and I only ended up getting 1-4 and rolling a 1 or a 2 for the other 2 dice. It was ridiculous. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to completely ignore the objective and just go try and kill guys. Maybe keep him off the objective, and then let him grab it late game or whatever. Something along the lines of like, I'm going to make it tough, but I'm not going to obviously give the game away. That got thwarted about 45 minutes in because the table next to us, which was bottom table, the game ended. The 2 players there who were friends of mine, Ashley and Mike, they were playing the same scenario. Ashley ended up picking up the objective and then marching it off the board with a drumming Mordor troll, and then winning the game. Mike, unfortunately, secured his position in Wooden Spoon because he had 0 wins, 3 losses, 0 tournament points, and 0 victory points. And I was like, well, I've got you beat just with my 1 tournament point because I had a minor loss. So we're going to go ahead and try and win this game now because why the hell not? Let's just see how well I can place myself now. So at that point, Tim had the objective, and he was doing the smart thing, which was, guarding the football, putting a lot of guys around the guy with it. I did end up killing the King of the Dead, and from there, it was just a matter of, can I roll a 6? Oh, hey, I rolled a 6. Can I wound and kill 3 of your guys? Nope, I can kill 1. All right, next fight. Can I roll a 6? Yep, I rolled a 6. Can I kill 3 or 4 of your guys? Nope, I can kill 1. All right, next. Can I roll a 6? And just take that and go over and over and over again for like the entire duration of 2 hours. It took us almost the entire game. And this is, again, a scenario that can end at 25%. But as it ended up, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but it ended up being where he didn't get quartered until like the very end of the game. I don't remember. I'm not exactly sure. We just kept going. It ended up being a complete tabling. I can't remember how exactly. I think maybe it was the last turn, and he had however many models he had. He needed to have like 8 left or 7 left, whatever it was, and then like half of them fled, like 3 or 4 of like the 7 or 8 he needed fled, and so I was able to just gang up on them with the rest of my guys, and they all died. And the game ended with a complete tabling, and I felt like a complete ass for doing it, but I mean, I will say this, Tim was a super good sport. I had the courage checked against his guys. He had the courage check against me. I never failed the courage check. He seemed to fail boatloads of them. Courage 6 guys, but somehow they could fail boatloads of courage check to charge my terror guys, and then boatloads more to flee when broken. Not really sure how that works out, but hey, that's how it worked out. So it ended up being a 10-0 victory for me. So my final game was a 4 tournament point to 0 tournament point, 10 victory point to 0 victory point win, which was literally enough to tie me for 10th place. Cool. Don't know how I did that with 1 win and 2 major, or 1 major win, 1 major loss, and 1 minor loss. But hey, whatever. Out of 18 people, I tied for 10th. Yay! In retrospect, I really enjoyed the event. I wish maybe I hadn't won that last game. I could have just let Tim go ahead and work his way off the board or something. I kind of felt like a dick because of how damn powerful my monsters were, just piling kill after kill and staking around and getting 6s turn after turn. Radagast was a complete botcher. I will say that because Radagast couldn't do a darn thing against wounding those defense 8 guys. I will say, Sebastian, super badass. He's going to be my hedgehog or rodent or whatever the hell you want to call him of the entire tournament. He got a 6x6 to wound and kill the King of the Dead, and then got another 6x6 to wound and kill on the Man of the Dead. So, yeah, Sebastian, way to go. Totally worth taking. Totally would take him for his low ball cost of what would be a shield for a hero. But I really enjoyed the event. This was actually my first event where I've traveled out of the Carolinas since 2019. Yeah, the last time I traveled out was it March on Music City or whatever the hell they do over there in Nashville in December or November. I don't remember. I don't go to it anymore. Unfortunately, my best friend that used to live there in Nashville, he no longer lives there, so I don't go to their events just because he was the main guy I went there to support. Their community's kind of gone downhill since he left, which is sad. So I don't go there. And he's in Texas. I'd love to be able to go to Texas. He's College Station. I don't know where the hell that's at. I didn't even know there was a town called College Station. But hey, he's in College Station, Texas. And then now I heard the last I talked to him, he was talking about moving again. So, stop moving around, Austin. But yeah, this is my first event that I've been to since 2019. Not because of, scamdemic or any of that bullshit, just money. I picked up a new hobby as Anybody who's a long-time follower of this channel knows I've bounced back and forth the channel names from, Middle Earth Scholar or whatever I was initially to Arda Scholar and Jeeping Scholar and Token Fanatic. That's what I was first. But that is a very expensive hobby, doing Jeeps and Jeep Club shit. It's always something, and it's awesome, and I love it because it's right here and it's easy to get doing. MESBG, fun, awesome, not as easy to get together and do, Also much more expensive when you start trying to travel to events. I definitely 100% plan on traveling up to the Richmond area again because of the fact that the MERV, that's their group, MERV, Middle Earth Richmond, Virginia, SBG. They are a great group. I didn't meet anybody there. I didn't obviously talk to everybody, but I talked to most people. They were all friendly. They were all laid back. There wasn't any power gamers or that 40K bullshit that I hate. That seems to be completely ruining this game. And unfortunately, it's going to probably be the reason that I quit here in another few years. Because they're coming in and just ruining it. But these guys, they're like that bastion of hope. They're Frodo in the dark against Shelob. He pulls out the file from Lothlorien, from Galadriel. Those guys, they seem to be my beacon of hope. Unfortunately, this positive publicity is probably not going to do them any good because there's going to be a bunch of assholes that hear this and be like, I can go there and kick ass. So, and that's the kind of shit that kills this game, in my opinion, is people like that. So, it is what it is. But I do look forward to going back there. I mean, I knew about half the people. Buddy Andy from our local group, he went there. Richie, Josh, and Ashley were there. Mike Parker was there. Robert Loader was there. And then Chris I had chatted to several times online. And he's probably one of the best TOs I've ever met. Laid back, chill guy. You had a question, he was spot on the point. He was like Johnny on the spot with an answer. There was none of this, asinine challenging of the rules. It's just we had a couple of questions, and he gave his thoughts and his answer, and it's like, okay, cool. I'm not worried about challenging. He's the TO. It is what it is, and that's what all players should do. It's like you go to an event, you might be playing something in your local community, and it might be right, it might be wrong. If you go to another event and it gets challenged and the TO rules against you, take it as it is. That's how events go. The TO should have the final say. So, that being said, we're now past the 40-minute mark. Surprise, surprise. And I will say thank you, everybody, for watching and listening through all this. Thank you to Connor, John, and Tim for being absolutely amazing opponents, quote unquote, on the battlefield. You guys had some wonderful armies. You guys played really well and really hard, and y'all were loads of fun to go up against. I look forward to rematches in the future. But until next time, please take care. Please like, share, subscribe, and enjoy your Middle Earth hobby. Take care, y'all.